BookTube, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about all the books that I read in July. This is a partial stack because I also read 2 electronic books. So these are the books that we're going to mention just briefly. I'm going to show you the books, I'm going to tell you about them briefly, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about my statistics and whether or not I am reading the things that I want to read. In July, I participated in a readathon. I did the BookTubeathon, which the challenge was to read 7 books in a week. I set a personal goal to read 8 books in that week. I failed both goals and I read 6 books in that week. But for me, it's still a win because I don't think I've ever read 6 books in a week other than the time I did that 24-hour readathon where I read 5 books in a day. But in general, I read 1 or 2 books per week, so that was a huge win for me. And overall, in July, I read 13 books, like I said, so that is an incredible reading month. That's an average of 3 books per week, so for me, that's awesome. So the first book that I read was Physics of Everyday Things by James Kakalius, who's a physics professor, and he breaks down the physics curriculum by taking a walk through a normal day of a person who lives in a major city with advanced technology and shows the physics principles at work in each of the machines that we use and encounter during that day. Rubbing Stones is a dual perspective book, and it follows a family that lives in the United States and a family that lives in Botswana in Africa. They both have teenage sons that are in trouble, and their lives intersect when they meet on a safari trip as they're both trying to rescue their sons in very different ways. Next, I read We're All Completely Beside Ourselves by Karen Joy Fowler, and this is a book about a young woman who is trying to make peace with her family after experiencing a pretty traumatic and uncharacteristic childhood. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon, which is about a teenage savant boy who is investigating the murder of his neighbor's dog and uncovering secrets about his family in the process. Next, I read The Dip by Seth Godin, which is about figuring out what to do when you're in a project that isn't working out and whether you should quit or dig your heels in. The Dip is about the point in your process where it's time to make that decision and how to make it. Then I read Girl in Snow by Dania Kukafka, which is another art that I got from NetGalley. This one is written in multiple perspectives. A popular teenage girl is murdered, and several of the suspects and the investigator reveal clues that could either help solve the crime or complicate the investigation. Man Tiger by Eka Kurniawan takes place in Indonesia. A murder has been committed, but through a series of flashbacks and remembrances detailing the family history as well as the town's history, the role of victim and aggressor are challenged. Here and Gone by Helen Beck, a young mother traveling through Arizona is arrested after a traffic stop and she loses track of her children's whereabouts, but the sheriff accuses her of doing them harm. A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. This was a finalist for the 2013 Man Booker Prize, and this is part novel, part nonfiction because the main character is the author and details of the author's real life appear in this book. And this is the story where the main character slash author is a middle-aged woman and she finds a diary of a teenage girl and their lives intersect as she starts to read it. New York 1, Tel Aviv 0 by Shelley Oria. This is a collection of short stories comparing life in the 2 cities as well as describing the sacrifices and the compromises that a person has to make in order to experience either one or the other of these places. Annie John by Jamaica Kincaid is a series of reflections by a young girl as she's growing up and trying to learn about her mother, both in the context of their home and as she compares her with the people that she meets in the wider society. Both characters, both the daughter and her mother, have the same name, so this is a study of the relationship between a mother and her daughter as seen through the daughter's eyes. The Song of Hannah by Eva Etzioni Halevi. This is a historical fiction based on Hannah, who's the mother of Samuel in the Old Testament. It is also told in dual perspectives. So the story of Penina is also told. Penina is the co-wife that is married to Hannah's husband. And finally, The Sellout by Paul Beatty, which won the Man Booker Prize in 2014, is a story about an African-American man who is trying to resolve his childhood issues now that his father has passed away. And it explores family and race and history and current events in a scholarly but also pretty comical way. And that's it. Those are the 13 books that I read in July. I read 11 physical books and 2 electronic versions. I read 2 nonfiction and 11 fiction books. Most of the books that I read were from my shelf. I only read 2 books from the library. 3. I read 3 books from the library. I got 2 electronic ARCs, and everything else came from my shelves. I'm really doing well with trying to read my shelves. That is one of the projects that I'm working on this year. I read a little over 3,300 pages in July, and I'm really happy with these statistics. So on to August reads. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books. I'm always up for book conversation. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and until next time, happy reading. Bye.